Hi, today we're going to introduce the Edustation to you and your students. The first thing we're going to ask you to do is to plug the computer in, put it on the shelf, plug in all the color-coded wires, the power cable. If you have a wired LAN, you can plug it in. If you have a wireless LAN, you can set it up in the standard wireless setup on Windows. And what we're going to do today is look first at the desktop. So you'll notice we have icons on the desktop that have links to them. The one that's most interesting for you and your kids will be Sky Vector, which is a aviation navigation site that will let you plan flights anywhere in the world. We also have a folder with 3D files in it if you'd like to print a 3D jet engine, lesson plans, and our curriculum, and various tutorials and learning videos that are included with the units. On the desktop we have a wireless keyboard with a trackpad. You can plug this in to recharge it with the wire provided, and there's an on-off switch, but it does go to sleep by itself and the charge lasts quite some time. And what we're going to ask you to do first is to go to the P3D icon prepared. This is a global flight package from Lockheed Martin. You can fly every airfield on the planet, geographically and topographically correct, in any one of 50 airplanes. In our case right now, we're going to take a look at the plane, and in this case we're flying a Cessna 172. We're flying at a KVNY, which is Van Nuys Airport in California. We have clear skies. We want to validate this correct and the time, and then we're just going to press OK. And that's going to put us on your home field's runway. Your simulator is set up so you will open in the default on a local field near your school. Now, before we get started, there's an exercise I'd like you to do with your kids. And it involves using your head to indicate the 6 degrees of freedom. Pitch up, pitch down, roll left, roll right, your right, and your left. So if you put your finger on your nose and you ask the kids to repeat these terms: pitch down, pitch up, roll right, roll left, and then your right and your left. Your is pivoting on the center of gravity and pointing the nose. The controls that we use, now I'm going to press the red button here to switch the view to the outside of the airplane. When we pull out on the yoke towards us, the elevator goes up and we get pitch up. When you push the elevator, when you push the yoke down, we'll get pitch down, the elevator goes down. When you turn to the left, you'll notice that one aileron will go up and one down, and that's going to make us roll left and roll right. Yaw is controlled with the rudder pedals, and if you slide them, you will see the rudder move. And the hat switch, which is located on the left side of the yoke, allows us to move around the view at any time, just like that. What we're going to do now is take a look at all of the switches that are important to us on the yoke. The left side of the yoke in the very front, down in here, is a switch that will put the brakes on. And you'll see a note, a red flag on the left corner that says brake, and when you release it, the brakes will go off. And we use that to stop the airplane when we're starting to learn how to fly. Below that is the elevator trim. And I'm going to use the plus key to zoom in and use the hat switch just to move over a tiny bit. And you will notice on the back elevator there is a small tab, and that tab is adjusted with this vertical switch. What that is doing is it's making small changes to the elevator so that we can put a plane properly trimmed to fly level and we don't have to hold on. And we'll get to that later. So the plus key, wherever you are, zooms in. The minus key on the keyboard zooms out. The right side of the yoke, the vertical switch, is for the flaps, and the flaps are extended to give us a bigger airfoil and therefore more lift. And we use the flaps when we are landing, and there are 3 clicks: 10 degrees, 20 degrees, 30 degrees. And I'm now going to retract them because we do not need the flaps on climb out. The horizontal switch on the right side of the yoke is for landing gear. This airplane has fixed landing gear, and so we're not going to be able to retract it. Okay, so I'm going to hit the red button and come back into the cockpit for a minute. And what we're going to look at next is the throttle quadrant to the right. There are 3 vertical levers on the throttle quadrant. The black lever is our throttle or our gas pedal. So when you raise it, you'll go faster, and lower it, you'll go slower. The middle slider is for propeller pitch. Some airplanes have adjustable pitch propellers, so you can vary the amount of air that is scooped up by the propeller. But this airplane does not have an adjustable pitch, will not be using that. The red lever is important. The red lever is for mixture. When we're on the ground and the air is very dense, we want to run the airplane at full rich, all the way up. But when we get to 10,000 feet, the air is getting less dense, less oxygen. So in order to have the correct ratio of fuel to air, we use this lever to lean out the engine so it'll continue to make power as we go higher in the altitude. Next, there are 3 rocker switches on the bottom, and each of those switches has an up switch and a down switch. The up switch in the first position under the throttle is a pause, and when you press that, the simulator will just stop wherever you are. And conversely, if you press it again, the simulator is going to come back into operation. The middle switch is reset, and if you hit the reset, it's going to reset the scenario wherever you started. And so if you're running a mission and you want to put the next student in, you hit the reset button and it will reset the mission for the next student. The far switch is for restarting the engine, and I can show you that if you need to restart it, you just push the up switch. The bottom switches, the first and the outside one, are set. The first one closest to you is going to put up our radio stack, our autopilot, and our indicators. We're not going to be using that today, so I'm going to move that down. The further outside switch, the lower rocker, will put up or hide your GPS, and we can fly GPS anywhere on the planet, geographically and topographically correct. Now, one of the things that we're going to look at is how we steer the airplane on the ground. And I'm going to put a little bit of sound back on. And you'll remember we said that we steer the airplane on the ground using the rudder pedal. So I would like you to give the plane a tiny little bit of power until it begins to move. And then if you slide your right foot forward and your left foot back, the plane will move to the right. And conversely, if you press the left foot forward and the right foot back, the plane will move to the left. And we use this so that we can stay on the center line of the runway. And when I'm ready to stop, I just press the red stop button, the brake button, and now we've come to a stop. So the strategy that we're going to talk about next is how we learn to take off and fly. But the first thing we need to do before we can do any of that is we need to understand the instruments in the cockpit and what they're telling us. These are called the six-pack, 2, 4, 6, plus 1 is the tachometer. We're going to go through these. I'm going to name them. I'm going to ask you to repeat those names because I want the kids to learn the names. So this is called the airspeed indicator. The airspeed indicator is telling us how quickly we're moving through the air. And it is powered by a diaphragm. There is what's called a pitot tube outside the airplane. The air rushes into that tube, comes up against the diaphragm, and the pressure moves the needle. So you'll notice in the airspeed indicator there's a green area, a yellow, and a red. The green area is where we've induced enough lift to overcome the weight and gravity holding this airplane on the ground. We're going to rotate, gently take off at about 60 knots or greater. The middle instrument is called our artificial horizon, and the artificial horizon is telling us our relative position to level. The orange line and the orange dot is your airplane. The white line is level. So if you're able to cover the white line with the orange line, your airplane will fly perfectly level. And I teach this to lots of kids, and I usually get their video game brain to kick in so that they test up and down and left and right, and by the time they understand that, they're able to fly straight and level. You'll notice above the white line are 4 black lines. In this airplane, they represent 5 degrees of angle of attack. So level, 5, 10, 15, 20, pitch up. 5, 10, 15, 20, pitch down. We want to pay attention to this because we do not want to go up steeper than 20 degrees up. The reason is that in order to fly, we need to have lift, and lift is generated by attached air coming over the top of the wing. If we put the plane in too steep of an angle of attack, that air no longer stays attached to the wing, and you get a stall, and the plane will fall. There's no flying without lift. So we want to watch this. The calibration on the top is roll angle, 10, 20, 30 degrees left, 10, 20, 30 degrees right. The third instrument on the top is our altimeter. The altimeter is telling us our elevation above mean sea level, the ocean. So if we were to land in New York City at LaGuardia Airport or Kennedy Airport, that altimeter is going to say somewhere around 35 or 40 feet above the ocean. If we were to land in Denver, that altimeter is going to read 5,300 feet. And if we were to land in Mexico City, that altimeter will read 7,400 feet because Mexico City is on a mountain. So we want to be aware of our surroundings. The indicator below that is called a vertical speed indicator, and that's telling us in hundreds of feet a minute how quickly we're going up or going down. Our target for learning is 500 feet a minute, which will be about 10 degrees pitch up. The middle instrument is called a directional gyroscope. This is a gyroscopic instrument that we calibrate on the runway to the actual heading of the runway. It should agree with the magnetic compass sitting on top of the dashboard. The last instrument here is called a turn indicator. And if you match the wingtip to the first mark, your plane will turn a 360-degree circle in 2 minutes. And we use that for training. The last instrument is the tachometer. And the tachometer is telling us how quickly the engine is spinning in revolutions per minute, RPMs. When we take off at full power, that we're going to be at about 2,500 RPMs. But once we climb up to, let's say, 3,000 feet and we level off, we want to pull that power back to 2,300 RPMs, and that will generate a cruise speed of about 100 knots. Okay. So let's move our view back up, and we're going to zoom out a little bit. Now what I'm going to ask you to do is to take the keyboard and press the ALT key, and that will bring up the menu bar. And what we're going to do first is we're going to go to one of our tutored learning missions, because I'd like you and your students to start with fundamentals of flight surfaces, fundamentals of takeoff, fundamentals of landing, etc. And in this case, what we'll do is we'll open the scenario for, let's go to takeoff. So we're going to go to scenario load. Then you'll notice that there's a favorites and a scenario title. If I hit the scenario title, it will put them in alphabetical order. And we're going to come down to missions. And we're going to select Mission 4.1, Fundamentals of Takeoff and Left Climb Out. And this will give you, as a teacher, an idea of how we're going to do this. I would like the kids to start in Mission 1, Fundamentals of Flight Surfaces, which will get them going with all of the degrees of freedom. There are 6 degrees of freedom in the airplane. Pitch up, pitch down, roll left, roll right, yaw left, yaw right. And so when we load the mission, you're going to hear a verbal tutorial telling us how to execute the mission.
Then advance the throttle all the way forward.
So we're asked to advance the throttle all the way forward.
The airplane has a left turning tendency. To stay on the runway center line, gently.
So this airplane has what's called a left turning tendency because of the propeller spinning. And if the plane moves to the left, you use a little bit of right rudder, and that will keep you on the center line. And when we achieve 60 knots, we're going to gently pull back, and we're going to fly directly into each of the boxes.
Continue climbing to 700 feet. Upon reaching 300 feet, retract the flaps. The good climb-out speed is about 75 knots.
So it's basically a straight climb out to about 500 feet before we're going to do any maneuver. And so we're climbing now.
Now you turn left
And
at a heading of 50 degrees.
Now we're going to start to roll to the left gently.
For straight and level flight.
And you'll notice that each time we go through a box successfully, you get an audible chime. And now we've taken off, and now we're rolling to the left, called the crosswind leg. And if we successfully go through all of the boxes, then we will be rewarded by the simulator.
You are now on the crosswind leg. The yellow group is in front of you.
It's very gentle, small hand movements.
Complete this mission.
Congratulations, we've successfully completed the mission. Now, you remember earlier we talked about trim, and we talked about how a small tab on the elevator, right here, can adjust our angle of attack. We completed the scenario, thank you. And what I'd like you to do is to explore that a little bit. And so if we push the elevator up, we're going to pitch down. If I push the elevator down, we're going to pitch up. And so we can use this trim so that we can get the plane flying straight and level so we don't have to hold on. And now we're going to come back into the cockpit. I'm going to show you something else. Remember we talked earlier about covering the white line with the orange? So if you look carefully here, I'm going to trim the plane so that we fly with the orange over the white line, right there. And we use this in the airplane so we don't have to hold on for dear life. We get the plane trimmed out to where we would like it, and we let the plane fly its course. Great. Now we're going to learn how we can visit and use some of our saved scenarios. And so we start by going to Scenario Load. We've included a number of saved scenarios that you can run with your kids. And again, if we hit the scenario title, they'll get ordered by alphabetically. And I'm going to just scroll down a little bit until I get to A1, London, England. And I'm going to double click on that. And now we're going to be flying the Red Bull Extra stunt racing airplane down the River Thames in London. This is very useful because if you want to visit different parts of the world, you can study their basic geography, their landmarks, their waterways, etc. And we can fly to them. And so now you'll see the simulation is paused. I can now unpause it, and I want to come back into the cockpit setting. And what we're doing here is we're just flying down the River Thames in London. You'll notice the Pineapple Building, Trafalgar Square. You'll see the London Eye, Big Ben. Right below us is Tower Bridge, right here. And we can just fly down the river and do a little sightseeing. We can put some sound back on. And what we're going to do is just fly until we see Big Ben, Parliament, Westminster Abbey, and here is the London Eye. And we can go to the outside view to see this as well. And we can zoom in to get a better view. So here's the London Eye. There's Big Ben, there's Westminster Abbey, and out in the distance is Heathrow. And again, if we want to put up our GPS, we can display that. And if we were to put our airplane into these green ILS feathers, we would be set up to land at Heathrow Airport. But we're not going to do that right now. So what we're going to do next is we're going to gain a little altitude. So I'd like to get up to about 2,000 or 3,000 feet, so I gave it a little more power. And I used my trim to raise the nose of the plane. Our artificial horizon is right here, and right now we're at 10 degrees pitch up, which is fine. We're just passing 2,300 feet, and we're flying in a direction towards the Heathrow Airport, which we will see shortly. Now, we're flying almost due west. Now I'm going to show you how we can change aircraft, and we have over 50 airplanes. So the first thing I want to do is I would like to come up here to Vehicle and go to Select. And what I want to do is I want to scroll up. So I'm going to put the pointer in that slider, and I'm going to slide up until we get to the Boeing 737. And you'll notice that there are several paint combinations. You can pick any one that you like. I'll just pick this one for convenience. And I'm now going to click OK. And by doing that, we are now flying a Boeing 737 over Heathrow Airport. Now, you'll notice that this airplane has retractable gear, And so we're going to push the horizontal switch on the right side, and you'll notice now that we brought the landing gear up. And now we'll come back into the cockpit. This is the indicator for landing gear. And in this cockpit, we're able to display the glass panels. And I want to just concentrate on our primary flight display. You remember earlier I said that each of the instruments we see in the cockpit of the Cessna will be displayed in every airplane, sometimes in a different format. And so now, this is called a glass cockpit. The tape on the left is our airspeed. The tape on the right is our altimeter, so we're at 5,600 feet and climbing. The center is our artificial horizon, and in this case we're at a 20-degree pitch up, which is a little too steep for me, so we'll push it down a little. There's Heathrow. And I can level the plane out using my trim. And here I've covered the white line. In this case, it's a black line that indicates the plane. And so now we've changed our airplane. Now I want to show you how we can change location to anywhere on the planet. So if we come up here to navigation, and if you click map, it's going to display where you are anytime, any place. Latitude, longitude, altitude, heading, and airspeed. And it'll also display local airfields and navigation beacons. So now we're flying our 737 over London, England. Everything looks very lovely here. Great. Now I'm going to teach you how we can go anywhere in the world. So we're going to come up here to navigation again, and this time we're going to click on Go to Airport. And you can put in the city name, you can put in the identifier, which are the letters that describe the field. You can put the airport name in, JFK, LAX, etc. Or you can put in the city. And in this case, I'm going to type in Istanbul. And the reason that we like Istanbul, it'll highlight Ataturk, which we're going to double click on. We're going to move our throttle down to idle. And now we're going to be on the active runway in Ataturk, well, in Istanbul, Turkey. What I like about Istanbul, Turkey is for learning is that Istanbul is in two continents. Half of Istanbul is in Europe and half of it is in Asia. And so now we're on runway 36 here at Istanbul, and we can validate that by going up to navigation map. And now you'll see our airplane on the runway. This is Europe, this is Asia, this is called the Bosphorus Straits. This is the Black Sea, and this is the Mediterranean. And so we can do a takeoff and fly over the Bosphorus just to see it for our own eyes. Again, latitude and longitude. Here the runway is 173 feet above mean sea level. This is the water. We're on a heading of 356.6, so we're basically heading north. All right, but now that we've done all of this flying, I think that it's time for us to get into a little faster airplane. So let's come back up here to Vehicle, Select. And in this case, I want you to scroll down until we get to the F22 Raptor, right here. And so I'm going to pick one of the paint colors, this particular one, and click OK. So now we're on the runway in Istanbul, Turkey, flying an F22 Raptor. And using the pan switch, we can look around the airplane, make sure everything is in place. And this particular airplane has what's called a heads-up display. And you'll remember when we originally spoke about the round gauges, I explained that all of the data that we see on the round gauges we will see in every airline cockpit. So in this case, the F-22 has a heads-up display. So it's displayed here in front of you and also on the pilot's helmet. And this line across the top is level. And the 0 with the 4 lines going through it is our airplane. You'll notice that you'll see a mark for 5 degrees low, 10 degrees low, and conversely, as you go up, you'll see markers for pitch up. We're at 48 knots, that's as slow as this airplane's knot meter goes. We're 170 feet above mean sea level, and we're on a heading of 356 degrees. We can at any time look around the cockpit and activate any of the instruments. This is our artificial horizon. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take off at about 120 knots. So I'm going to go to full power and we'll accelerate quite quickly. And so now we're just passing 100. 150, and I'm going to go to the outside view and just gently rotate the plane up. You'll see our landing gear is down, so I'm going to slide the horizontal switch on the right side of the yoke. That's going to bring the gear up, and I'm going to return to the cockpit view and zoom out. And now what we're going to do is we're going to roll over and take a look at the Bosphorus Straits. We could fly. Now we're flying in Europe, and as soon as we cross the Bosphorus, we will be in Asia. And so you'll see here, this is the waterway, and we can just roll into it, keeping our nose up, and follow it to the Mediterranean. And so now we're flying over the Mediterranean. We can, of course, pan our view and look around. We can go to the outside view. If I pull the throttles back, we'll take the afterburners off. And we can fly over the Mediterranean. Now this plane is rated to fly stunt types of activities, and so we could fly this airplane upside down. And when we're upside down, the controls are opposite. So pushing in makes us go up, and pulling back makes us go down. And now I'm going to roll back out and come to level. Great. So today we reviewed installing the computer, understanding the desktop, working with the keyboard, loading a demonstration mission flight. We flew mission 4, which is fundamentals of takeoff. We then changed location by loading one of our saved scenarios. We went to London. We flew the Red Bull Extra. Then we went into vehicles and we selected a 737 and we flew the 737 over London. And then we changed our location and went to Istanbul, Turkey, changed our aircraft again, and we flew the F22 Raptor. To exit prepared, you merely push the escape key on the keyboard, and that will take us up to the exit. We go exit prepared, and this will return us to our desktop. If you have any questions or you're having some difficulty, please call our office at 203-527-5747.